The positive thinking works short term. By changing your negative thoughts into positive, gives you a short-term relief from the impacts, from the negative impacts of your negative thoughts. What I mean by that is that when the negative thoughts create this discomfort, creates this emotional pain, creates this suffering, naturally you want to replace them with positive thinking, with positive thoughts, so that you can find comfort, you can find peace. But there's a little caveat to this, because when you are applying positive thinking, you are not really dealing with the source, the root cause of your negative thoughts. And therefore, you are not really affecting your entire psyche, your entire internal programming that creates these negative thoughts, without impacting, without making any root cause changes, or without, I should say, without understanding what creates your negative thoughts. By just replacing them with positive thoughts, you will be always swinging in the pendulum between negative and positive and negative and positive. So think about a triangle. So bottom left is, let's say, negative, and the bottom right corner is the positive. So what we are trying to do is actually trying to go to the apex of the triangle. We want to stand on the negative and the positive to bring them together, so that we can actually go and rise above the negative. Imagine that you are walking on the street, you are walking on a path, and the negative is pulling you to the left, and you're trying to apply positive thoughts into negative thoughts to replace them. Then what you're doing is you are actually leaning towards the right, and when you are actually practicing to be present, then you can see the negative thoughts, and also you can see the positive thoughts. So we are not always negative, we are not always positive, right? We have two sides. We have negative side and we have positive side. We have a confidence. We have a side who is confident. We have a side who feels not good enough, insecure. We have a side that likes itself, and there's a side that doesn't like itself. So we are the sum of the two, but the percentages are different. So sometimes, and most of the time, because we live in the survival state, our negative side, which is trying to find these attacks and threats, possible attacks and threats, always trying to protect ourselves. So the negative thoughts are more dominant. So if we applied positive affirmations, if we applied positive thoughts at all times, will our energy increase? Will our life become more positive? Yes and yes. Yes, if you apply positive thinking and if you start seeing everything positive, your energy is going to increase. However, there is a caveat to it, where your own past experiences created an internal programming, a subconscious internal programming, where you are feeling insecure, you are feeling not safe. So if somebody has this internal programming, repressed feeling of not good enough, repressed feeling not recognized, repressed fear that, loneliness, abandonment, worthlessness, not being seen, even if you keep telling yourself, oh, I am being seen, or I am good enough, or I have worth, your actions will not follow your thought. your positive thoughts. Because if you feel worthy, your actions will be different than if you feel not worthy, but you are thinking that you are worthy. When we think about negative thought consuming our energy, because it pulls us into this survival state. So we are in that reactionary state. Negative thoughts mean we are basically in the fight or flight defense mechanism, in that subconscious fight or flight defense mechanism. So when we are in that state, we are exerting energy because we are in that survival mode. In order to override that negative thought, that negativity, bringing positivity, bringing positive thoughts into it to offset that, you need energy, more energy to balance it. So therefore, actually, that's why it is not a long-term strategy. Positivity is not a long-term strategy because it requires so much energy from you to balance that negative energy that the negative thoughts create. Through this process, through the Rise to Realize Power process, what we are trying to do is we are trying to digest, we are trying to become aware of our negative thoughts, understand them, why they are created, go to the source code and digest that source code, process that source code, the root cause of all of our negative thoughts. When we process that, that means that your positivity will cost you less, meaning you're going to need less energy to switch to positive energy, to positivity, to positive thoughts. So you want that because you don't want to spend all that energy to keep yourself up in the positivity. So if you digest the negative, if you process the negative, less energy you require to be positive. And that's why actually you're going to prolong. So you're going to have a longer term strategy to stay in the positive energy, stay in the positivity. When you process the negative thoughts and understand the root cause of your negative thoughts, they're going to start losing their power, their force, their charge, that negative charge. They're going to lose your power over you, over your actions. So once they lose that force, then it will require less energy from you to offset them. So therefore, at any given time, you will be able to offset them to each other with ease. And you create, in physics, there's a 0 point. It's a vacuum where it is the most powerful state to be in. It's the eye of the storm. It is the center where every force, the negative and the positive, come together. So you can actually move yourself into that, bring yourself into that state, which is the state of being present. That's the state of presence. You are actually looking at the negative and it is not getting hold of you. It's not controlling you anymore. You can look at the negative and stay present, and you can look at the positive and you don't get into euphoria. You just look at the positive and you bring them together. All of a sudden you rise in consciousness. All of a sudden you rise in energy. And that's the highest potential you have in terms of the energy. That's when you feel rejuvenated. That's when you feel motivated. That's when you start embracing life at its fullest state.